Okay. So several places that you can go to find the information again. First place is the Seattle Aquarium Experiential Learning, 7th through 10th grade. You tap View the Assignment, just like you always do for assignments. You'll find the information here. You go to Student View so you can see that. This has the overview of the information, but just not the examples. I opened this up because I know there are some 3rd through 6th graders who are interested in this challenge also, so they can take the same challenge. That's what the highlighted section is. So I kept it there. I didn't just give it to 7th through 10th graders. This is the reminder of what you did when you were at the aquarium or with a live stream or asking a teacher to help you live stream the link to the global goals. I'm going to select this one to show you again that the link and reference is right there for you. And remember that you're not just saying goal 14, you're scrolling down to find the targets. And when you identify the target that matches yours the most or that you're most interested in, there are graphics. So you're going to take a snip or a screenshot of your graphic so that shows a visual representation, put that in Sway, put the description of it there, and then how it relates to yours specifically. So when you're looking at, for example, target 14.2, protect and restore ecosystems, if that's yours, you might say, how does this specifically relate to my topic? And it could be an example of like Callie's, she's going to look at the reproduction for seahorses. And if you don't have seahorses that keep reproducing, then you could run into extinction. So if she did something like protect and restore ecosystems, she might say, target 14.2, here's the picture, by 2020, the goal was to sustainably manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystems to avoid significant adverse impacts, including strengthening their resilience, taking action for their restoration in order to achieve healthy and productive oceans. In my artifact, I'm going to talk about the reproduction of a seahorse to show that what's going on with seahorses and reproduction during this time and what we can do to make sure that seahorses don't become extinct. So she would be making a direct connection between why she chose the target and her particular topic or her particular animal. So make sure that you're doing that with whichever target you choose. You're using the image, and then you're giving the description and title of it, and then specifically saying how it connects to your particular goal. I just realized, was that screen sharing for you guys? Doesn't look like it was screen sharing. Here, I zoomed in on that. Hold on just a second. Looks like my other meeting call is not showing up on this Teams, on this computer. Let's pull it up here. Make sure that you can see this. Now can you see it? Sophia, were you able to see that on there, or was it not showing up?
Yes.
Okay, you can see it now. Were you able to see it before?
No.
Oh no! If you can't for something like that, please feel free to come off of mute and let me know. I was trying to work off of 2 computer screens again, and it decided to freeze on my second one, so I couldn't see if it changed or not. Okay, so let's go back to this. Instead of just saying, we're doing goal 14, and that's what it's related to, we are going more specific by exploring the targets. You're clicking on Explore Targets. It brings you right there. These were the ones that I was zooming in to show you guys. So if you chose, I'm going to go over to this one. I used this as the example with Callie's. Target 14.2, you would take a snip of that graphic, that image. You would describe like the protect and restore ecosystems by 2020, sustainably manage and protect marine and coastal ecosystems, that part of it. And then when you take your specific one, like Callie's is seahorses and reproduction, she would say, I'm interested in protecting and restoring the ecosystems so that maybe, for example, seahorses don't become extinct. And we need to know about seahorse reproduction and how they work to make sure that those oceans are sustainable and seahorses continue to persist. And she would find out, how do they benefit the ecosystem? Like, how do seahorses benefit the ecosystem? And once she knows that, then she can go forward with her project. But being really clear and explicit about how these things fit together is going to make it more meaningful and show that you're directly applying your knowledge to the target and your specific topic. An example of another one, this is where, Emmanuel, I'm going to have you share your screen to show the process. of what you've got so far, but let me finish this one first for like target 14.A. Increase scientific knowledge, research, and technology for ocean health. You would make sure he has that graphic for whichever target he chose specifically. And then the description of it, so you could take a screenshot of the description and use that as an image, or you can retype it. To increase scientific knowledge, develop research capacity, and transfer marine technology, taking into account Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission criteria and guidelines, transfer of marine technology in order to improve ocean health and to enhance the contribution of marine biodiversity. So he would say, if he chose this target, he would say this part of it and say, what does it have to do with his? He's talked to me a lot about his and asked for feedback and critique. Know that all of you can ask for feedback and critique along the way also, and it can help make the project better. So Emmanuel, can you share your screen to show the process that you have so far?
Do you want me to share the sway or the simulation?
Do the sway first, please.
Okay.
While you're doing that, I'm resetting my other computer to see if I can get the second Teams call to show up so I can pull up 2 calls at the same time. While he's pulling that up also, do any of you have any questions for me in the meantime? Like something that you were wondering about or that you were stuck on the instructions or need more explanation? Okay, so Emmanuel, I'm going to have you walk through this and just show a little bit of what you've got so far.
Okay.
Yes, it's showing. It's up
Okay.
there. We can see it.
So when I present it, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, so you just want me to walk through it?
Sure, and actually I'm going to add a couple things along the way. Can you scroll up a little bit higher? Remember in the instructions it said as long as the headings are there, they can be in a different order. With his specifically, I asked Emmanuel to put his final product at the very top. Once he has it finished, it's going to be the thing that catches the people's attention the most because he's doing a screen recording of him walking through his simulation. So in this case, it's going to pop out more if he has that video. So the first thing people see is the video, and then they start wondering, oh, what is it? How did he do it? Then it goes into the intro. For those of you who are in the 9th grade ELA class, it's similar to something that authors do, where they'll catch your attention by what's happening right now, what's the end of the story, and then they bring you back to describe it. So it's overlapping and using a similar technique, and he can reference that also as a connection. Okay, go ahead, Emmanuel. You can talk about it a little bit more from your perspective.
So do I just read through it?
Talk to them about your process.
So basically, when I went to the aquarium, I took these pictures so that it was easier for me to make 3D models for the sea star, for the simulation. And then
I took some pictures for you, just like I took some pictures for people who are remote, for people who put in a request. Make sure you cite the source, too, of all the things if they weren't yours originally, or if you're one of the people who asked me to live stream for you, make sure that you cite your source there so that people know where the information or images come from. So there are several people who asked if I could live stream, and then we were able to do animal observations that way as well. Okay, continue, Emmanuel.
Okay. So then my first design idea was to create a tank where the sea stars would just sit there and you could observe them. And then I would have signs talking about the life of a sea star and some scientific facts about them. And so I went to create the 3D model. And so in Blender, which is a 3D modeling app, I first created a 2D version of the model. Then I used the extrude tool to make it a 3D version, and then I used the shader tools in order to add color. Then I chose to instead make it one of those areas in an aquarium where you can like touch manta rays / sea stars and everything. And so it also relates to my global goal target because it's easier to research when you can look up close. And my target is 14.A, which is researching marine life to make it easier to understand them and everything. And so the first pictures was when I was adding in the 3D models. This was when I was adding information, and then this was something that I wrote about it. And then I wrote the ISTE standards, and then these are all my sources.
Okay, so can I have you scroll up and then go back to the edit mode, please? I'm going to talk through a couple things here. Thank you. So some things that you can keep in mind as you're pulling yours together. You can still have it in any order and then drag and drop it at the end. So if you want to change the order of something. As he's scrolling down a little bit, notice where it says final product. When he adds his video card there, he's going to change the size of that so that that's a focus on that video. Instead of keeping it small, it's going to be, there's like a small, medium, and large size right there. Thank you. He's going to choose the large size or the medium one, depending on what look he wants to go for. But I recommend that anything that's yours, that's created, enlarge the size to either medium or large. If you're highlighting a video of some reference or some other piece of information that you use visually, definitely move it to at least the medium size because it will make it easier for people who are reviewing this. One of the goals of this project is for you to be able to demonstrate that you can take information from core content and make it really clear how you're connecting it to something else. So that's one reason that I want you to be explicit with that. You can either type it or you can use audio recordings to explain and express. Scroll down a little bit, please. Notice the section with observations. One other thing he's still going to add to that is describing his observation. What was he seeing going on? Because the first part of this project, that your goal is to actually observe in nature. And I mentioned to him when he was asking for feedback that even people who are artists for Pixar, one of their jobs is to actually look at things in real life. So when they did that short video on Piper, the little bird, they watched those little birds in real life. They watched the behaviors, they watched what they did and how they interacted with things. So this up close one, I got a picture of him taking a picture of the sea star that shows evidence that he was observing it. But he's going to describe what he saw happening, how the sea star moved. And even if he's like, well, I'm not sure exactly, he can look it up, like how does a sea star move, and then explain that to someone either in audio or in writing. He was talking about using some of that knowledge as part of his voiceover when he has his final product, so that he talks about the global goal, his specific track, and why the sea star, and then specifically why he chose a simulation. So all of those things make it really clear how you're applying your knowledge from one place to the other. Otherwise, they'll just look like separate, disconnected pieces. Okay, can you scroll down a little bit more, please? And then this global goals one, I liked that he had the whole image to show that there are a lot of different goals. It's not just about water, but what he's going to add in next to this part is to show specifically of those goals, he's focusing in on life below water. And he might do that by putting first like an image of the water goal and then a narrowed down image of the specific track, or he might just take an image of the track. I keep calling it track, sorry, it's called a target. Sometimes they call things tracks as in you're going a specific direction, like you're on a road and you're following a track, but this one is like a target, like a bullseye. So he might just choose to take the specific target that he's using and use that image and add that also. And then as he's talking about the first design ideas, the reason he chose to add some of this in is because he's working towards mastering exemplary. By being able to show the process, it gives you a bigger picture of what's going on and how someone got there. Because his is specifically tied to his game design course, it makes sense for him to take this approach. So when he talks about this, he's going to have something either in his final video voiceover or he's going to type it to make that connection really clear. Something like, to connect my game design course to what I'm doing with Global Goal 14, I'm showing how I'm applying my skills in coding, using different tools, and then applying it to the style of a game design for simulation. And someone might say, why? Why would you care about that? He could say, because people find games interesting, or because I want to be a game designer someday. And that would get part of it. But the next thing he would want to do is also be really clear that in science, in that track that he chose, I said track again, in that target that he chose, using models and simulation can make a difference for scientists to predict the life or the ecosystem or help them understand things that they can't observe in person. So he's going to be really clear about that connection. Whichever direction you're taking in your project, you need to be clear about how you're connecting the goal to your specific course, to what you're doing. And it can happen in a lot of different ways. It can happen visually. It can happen with you verbally saying it as a voiceover, or it can be like a typed few sentences. And then as he scrolls down a little bit more, this part where he mentions revisions, he asked if he should just include the final images or the things along the way that he chose not to do. I liked the idea of him including things in there that were first levels, even if he chose not to do those, or first designs, because what it does is makes it really clear that the design thinking process happened. Instead of just doing one thing for the first time and that's it and you're done, he's showing that he had an iteration of a design, he thought of something he wanted to do differently, and then redesigned the problem. So keep scrolling down a little bit, please. By showing progress, you can say, okay, it took all these steps to make this happen. Sometimes other people in your peer group will go, oh, well, yeah, just because this was easy for you. But what this does is shows that there was a lot of time and hard work that went behind it, and it was a choice that he made to do all the steps along the way. And so someone can't argue, oh, it's just because it was easy, or you just did it quickly, or if I had that kind of time or could do it that fast, mine could be like this too. Instead, it shows that there were a lot of steps behind the scenes that went into it. And that's a benefit of showing the progress, process, and then those multiple iterations of design. Scroll down some more, please. And so with this part right here, I'm going to have him either verbalize in writing or an audio recording to talk about what he did with each of those design thinking process steps. Like, what did he do when he was defining his problem? Why did he care about that? That will go in with a track. I said track again. Target, target, target. It'll go in with the target for the global goal, why he chose that and why he cares about simulation. It'll go in with the prototyping and with some of the design and ideation, so he can mention what those different things were and how they related to the design thinking. And then as he scrolls down more, this what I learned part is the really important part for showing the connection between your core content. In his case, he's connecting game design and science. He can also reference his 9th grade ELA course because there's a way that you approach information, like some of those authors did, with saying, I'm starting with the end first, and then I'm going backwards to tell you how I got there. So he can connect basically 3 different core content areas that influence this and say what he learned by connecting it. He could talk about what he learned in terms of coding, what he learned in terms of applying the game design sheet. He could actually even include that game design process sheet because he's using a template that came directly from his course. So he's showing he took what he learned in the course and is applying it. So Emmanuel, that would be good to take a screenshot of that one to show that you did a planning guide that was directly from that course. He's also going to include a screenshot from something from his course or something that showed what module or lesson specifically influenced his thinking. So make sure that all of you have a screenshot of what your core course content is that relates directly back to this. And then scroll down a little bit more, please. For these ISTE standards, one of your goals is to be able to show some of the things that you can do with technology. And at first he was thinking that there was a lot of information there that he was having to add in more, but I had him talk through what he was doing to show that he was actually already demonstrating a lot of these things. He can choose to leave it just like this, or he can choose to be like one specific sentence in there. If he said something like, for creative communicator, there's the standard, but here's how I was a creative communicator. I showed my learning visually, I showed it in a video that I created, and then I put it together in a portfolio that other people can use. So he might do something like that to make it really clear that he knows what he was doing for each one of those standards. You can unshare your screen now, Emmanuel. Thank you. Unless there's something else that you wanted to mention, I'm going to shift over to the Tech for Good to show people that. Anything else you wanted to say, Emmanuel?
No.
Okay, thank you for showing that, and thanks for getting those pieces together to give an example of what that can look like. The other thing I really appreciated about what he did is he chose a very intentional design, color, and aesthetic to show the audience really clearly that he was doing something with a sea star. So you could see that as soon as you open his sway. Okay, so I'm switching over to the Tech for Good rubric. This link is directly in the instructions as a resource. So I'm going through it with you really quickly to show what this is. So Tech for Good is part of the We Day, We Movement organization. For those of you who are with us other years, We Day is something that it will gather some of the famous artists, musicians, actors, politicians. There was an astronaut, global activists who have made some difference in the world, people who are pretty well known. And they will come together and celebrate the impact that young people have done in society, that it's one local positive impact and one global. For all of you who've done a letter to people for the Seniors Center, that was an example of a local positive impact that you made in society that went beyond yourself. This one that we're doing has the potential of bringing global awareness to something, and we've specified the global goal for sustainable development for life below water, partly because we have a lot of water around us in Seattle, so it hits both local and global at the same time. But the impact that you can choose to have with this by bringing awareness or starting a concept is a type of service learning. So I'm going to zoom into this section just a little bit more so you can see what I'm talking about. It's an approach in which students explore problems in their school or community, develop plans to solve them, and take action. This is one reason why I recommended civics, because you can show civic engagement by bringing awareness to people who may not know things about the oceans or life below water or how it relates to our life now. And so when you develop a plan to solve them or investigate the learning opportunities outside the classroom, including the community-based, it could be humanitarian. In this case, it happens to be animals, but the animals and ecosystems can impact humans. It can be a scientific and artistic activity, as well as cross-cultural or international experiences. So I'm going to use Sophia's as an example because she's looking at some of the cross-cultural references to flood stories, and that would hit that topic there. By bringing awareness to some of those different things, it could resonate with people in different countries who know some of those different flood stories in ways that maybe people in the United States haven't heard of them before. And it brings awareness to people in the United States of how similar these types of things could be when they never thought about that. At the same time, hers is talking about ocean and marine life and climate, and will give you an idea of how those things relate. It's showing that she's directly connecting it with one of her core content. In this case, it was world religions. And then for other people, see what's another example. I mentioned to Emmanuel that his is looking towards that scientific advancement one. I know some people who are doing the anatomy and physiology connected to anatomy and physiology of humans and some kind of sea animal. That could be an artistic and a scientific activity at the same time. So what this is doing is helping you to see how your work can become a service learning experience. I've also let several students know who've already showed me their progress that I want to be able to share these directly with the education departments at the Seattle Aquarium so they can see what came out of this. By going to the Seattle Aquarium or looking at live stream, you're showing something is related to life outside of just something in a core course content, that it's related to something in your life where you live in the Pacific Northwest. So this part that's really important on this is that you're able to articulate the importance of your cause. Why did you choose that target? I said it right this time, the target for the global goal. Why did you specifically choose that target, and why is it important to you? Why do you want to advance the understanding for that? And then how are you infusing technology into that particular type of service learning through action? There's so much technology that you're using right now, but there are a lot of people who don't use that technology for an intentional purpose. They'll use it for just saying, okay, well, I'm going to turn in this assignment and no one else will see it except for one teacher. This is an intentional purpose for other people to experience it and learn more from what you have gained and learned. So it's encouraging you to create innovative solutions for those in need of using technology, for those who may not have seen those things in the same way. There are a lot of people in different states, in different areas of Washington who've never had the opportunity to go to the aquarium, and you'll get a chance to be able to share that out with them. For those of you who took the opportunity to ask a classmate or me to help live stream, you're showing that you were leveraging technology and collaboration with someone else to be able to get access to the information you needed, whether it was an animal observation or asking questions or gathering information from around the aquarium. And that's what this one is, that students incorporated innovative and advanced understanding of technology solutions to social issues. That's an example of that. So if you're one who did that, what you would do in yours is make sure you make that very clear and say that I reached out to my teacher or I reached out to another classmate and they helped connect me through technology while I was remote and they were in person. And then ISTE stands for International Society for Technology and Education. Innovative designer, using a variety of technologies within a design process. So that was the design thinking strategy that you could see on manuals. That shows that you do multiple iterations of design and you don't just do something perfectly the first time. We don't expect that. We expect you to be able to learn from something and make adjustments and revise it to make it even better. That's where you can get feedback from me and then I can work with you on that to solve problems by creating new, useful, or imaginative solutions. Some of you are doing infographics that can show an imaginative solution to a challenge or a problem. I'll add in a few other images and pictures that I took at the Seattle Aquarium that showed types of infographics that might inspire some of you who are doing infographics. And they were right there at the aquarium to give a visual representation first and then minimal words to kind of draw people in to get them to say, wait, I want to know more about that. What is going on in this picture? So it's an intentional selection and use of digital tools to plan that consider design constraints. That means you don't have ultimate unlimited resources for everything. There's some kind of constraint that you need to work around. For some of you, it was a constraint of not going in person. For others of you, it may be that you don't have access to information because it's not known yet. So by identifying these are some constraints I had or considerations that I had, you're demonstrating you're intentionally designing something. A tolerance for ambiguity means you don't have someone giving you every step along the way, that some of it needs to be designed on your own, that you figure out, and that's starting to build a really important skill for life. The digital citizen one is recognizing the rights, responsibilities, and opportunities of living and learning and working in an interconnected digital world. Act and model ways that are safe, legal, and ethical. So by citing sources, by saying this wasn't my original photograph, but I asked a teacher for assistance to help see these things, and whoever it was let me use this photograph in my presentation, that's demonstrating a legal and ethical way of citing sources. If you worked with a classmate, really clearly identifying that I collaborated with a peer, even though I did this project on my own, but I collaborated with someone on this idea or this person gave me feedback. You're citing your sources and you're showing that you're in a connected digital world. You're not just doing everything by yourself, and it's a valuable skill to demonstrate. Being able to cultivate and manage digital identity and reputation, that you're known for someone who's honest, who demonstrates that your work is your work or that you've learned from the influence of someone else. That's a really important part of digital citizenship. And knowing that there's a permanence of actions in the digital world. In this case, one of the requirements is to make this public. That is viewable for other people, so you know that the quality of your work will be seen by others around the world. And so what you choose to put into this becomes a permanent record of a demonstration of who you are and what you're achieving and what you're adding in. So keep that in mind, because these ones will be public and that you're showing a digital citizenship through that and how you've connected information. Global collaborator, that's directly connecting with the global goals for sustainable development, knowing that there are people around the world who are seeing problems in the world and saying we need to do something to fix these. Here are some categories. Here are some things that people can do, and starting to get young people aware of them so they can start spreading the ideas out to bring awareness to others. The rights and responsibilities of learning in that area. And then the last one, the creative communicator. communicate clearly, to express themselves creatively for a variety of purposes using platforms, tools, styles, formats, digital media appropriate for their goals. So I wanted Emmanuel to give the example because he showed that he was using Blender, Unity. He also looked in some Paint 3D concepts for different objects. He's used Microsoft Teams to be able to show that he communicated with other people. These kind of calls are using tools in that format. Being able to use web searches and research. So if you're able to specifically identify how you communicated creatively, and then ultimately the type of communication he will do to have his final product, his artifact, is going to be visual and audio as part of a video. Those things will help your audience know that you intentionally use these strategies for problem-solving skills, technology to drive reflection. I gave an example to 9th and 10th grade of something that a couple of them could do if they were overlapping similar topics, to do a slight twist on it, but do one essentially portfolio that held multiple of their work. So it wasn't doing less work, but it was making it a more interconnected project to show this skill. So do any of you have any questions for me? This is just going over the types of things that we're looking for in your final product. Final thing that I will show you, I'll unshare my screen. And for those of you who want to see again where this information is, I'm going to switch over to this page. Again, this is in 5th through 10th grade. In the assignment section, Seattle Aquarium Experiential Learning. Reminder, experiential is based on experience. That's what experiential means, that you're learning through experience. Place-based means it's in a place that the core of the learning started in the Seattle Aquarium. You have one live animal observation. Global goals brings you directly to that web page. Your basic core content ones, what you learned, your final product. As you scroll down, you could see achievement levels here. And the Tech for Good criteria is here. If you're in 7th and 8th grade, I showed this on the call before, you click on 7th and 8th grade. You go to Notes. In Notes, you will find more detailed instructions and examples specific to 7th and 8th grade. And there are some of the specific examples of modules that you might choose to use in yours. And for 9th and 10th grade, yours is in your OneNote. From Wednesday on the day of the field trip, and I gave some examples of things you could do. If you notice that a lot of people in your class are doing similar concepts to yours, think about ways to make yours stand out and become unique. So instead of everyone saying we're doing anatomy and physiology with skeletal system, I gave some other examples from anatomy and physiology, like lesson 3, that you could talk about things in labels: superior, inferior, anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, proximal, distal. And that can be a way that you're connecting in your core content. Notice how I did a screenshot. This is an example of what I'm talking about, that I want you to take something from your core course, so you're making it very clear that you took the knowledge that you learned in one context and now you're applying it to another. Okay, any other final questions for me to explain this process? If not, I'll end the call now. Hopefully that helped answer some of those common questions that were coming up. If you have questions, let me know. If you want me to give you feedback, let me know that as well. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.